Every great heist starts with a plan. A flawless scheme designed to beat the system, outsmart security, and walk away free. But what happens when the perfect plan goes wrong? When paranoia creeps in and trust begins to crumble? 1. The plan. It all started with 4 master criminals, each an expert in their field. They had been planning the heist of the century for months. Every detail was meticulously covered. The bank's state-of-the-art security system, the precise timing of guard rotations, and even the fastest getaway route through the city's underground tunnels. Nothing could go wrong, or so they thought. The leader, known as the architect, was a genius at devising flawless plans. His blueprints for this heist were as close to perfect as they could get. Every motion sensor, camera, and alarm system had been analyzed and accounted for. The Phantom, a world-class hacker, had already bypassed most of the bank's digital defenses, rendering their firewalls useless. The Ghost, a master of disguise and stealth, would easily slip through the guard's line of sight unnoticed, while the Muscle, a former Special Forces operative, would handle any physical confrontation, ensuring no one got in their way. The night of the heist came, and everything unfolded like clockwork. The Phantom hacked the surveillance system, making the cameras loop on old footage. The architect kept a watchful eye on the time, signaling the Ghost to slip inside unnoticed. The Muscle stood by, ready to neutralize any threat. They made their way to the vault, where millions of dollars awaited. But as they cracked open the vault, the air was thick with tension. Suddenly, a silent alarm they had overlooked was triggered, alerting authorities. Sirens wailed in the distance. Despite their flawless plan, something had gone terribly wrong. Now, it was a race against time, and the only question was, would they make it out alive? 2. The heist. The night of the heist, everything went according to plan. The team moved like shadows, their every step rehearsed down to the second. They had studied the blueprints for months, memorized the security rotations, and knew every camera angle like the back of their hands. When they reached the vault, there wasn't a hitch. The laser grids that would have triggered an alarm were expertly disabled, and the reinforced steel door, which had been touted as impenetrable, was cracked open in under 10 minutes by their tech genius, Alex. Inside, the air was cool and still, and before them lay millions of dollars in cash and jewels. Stacks of neatly bundled bills lined one side, while on the other were cases filled with diamonds, emeralds, and rubies, glittering even in the dim light. For a moment, they all stood in awe of their prize. This was it, the culmination of years of planning, sweat, and secrecy. But there was no time for hesitation. They went to work, stuffing duffel bags with the spoils. It was quick, efficient, and silent. The team had practiced this routine countless times. Every member knew their role. Within minutes, the vault was emptied, and they vanished as swiftly as they had appeared. Everything had gone off without a single snag. As they sped away into the night, the adrenaline was high. They had done it, pulled off the perfect heist. But as the city woke to the news of one of the largest robberies in history, none of them knew that their biggest challenge was yet to come. For the danger wasn't in the heist itself, it was in what came next. 3. The paranoia begins. Back at the hideout, the euphoria of the heist began to fade, and with it, the once unbreakable trust between the crew started to crack. They gathered in a dimly lit warehouse, the duffel bags full of cash and jewels piled on the table. At first, it was all smiles and congratulations, until the division of the spoils came into play. It started small, with a whispered comment from one of them, implying that someone hadn't pulled their weight. Another snapped back, defensive, insisting that they had done exactly what was expected of them. The tension in the air thickened, and before long, accusations were flying. "Alex, you took longer than we planned at the vault. You almost got us caught," one of them barked, his eyes narrowing as if trying to detect a betrayal he hadn't seen before. "That wasn't me. The security system was more advanced than we thought. I saved us." Alex shot back, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. As the argument escalated, old resentments bubbled to the surface. Personal grievances that had been suppressed for the sake of the job were now unleashed. The muscle of the group, Jack, leaned in close to another member, eyes blazing with fury. "I saw you pocketing extra. You think I wouldn't notice?" No one was innocent anymore. Paranoia spread like wildfire. Each one of them began to question the other's motives, suspecting someone was planning to cut a side deal or even betray the crew altogether. The unity that had made their operation flawless was disintegrating before their eyes. Trust, once solid as stone, was crumbling, and with it, so was their perfect plan. The real danger was no longer the law, it was each other. 4. Betrayal. With millions of dollars at stake, it didn't take long for greed to take over. Tensions had been simmering since they returned to the hideout, and soon enough, the desire for more began to cloud their judgment. They had planned every step of the heist meticulously, but none of them had planned for the inevitable breakdown in loyalty once the money was within reach. It started with subtle shifts in behavior. Late-night phone calls made in secret, whispered conversations when others weren't around. Alex, the tech genius, had already begun devising his escape, thinking he could disappear with a bigger share before anyone noticed. He had hacked into their offshore accounts and rerouted a hefty sum into a private stash under a different alias. But what Alex didn't realize was that he wasn't the only one plotting. Jack, the muscle of the crew, had caught wind of Alex's plan. A natural-born survivor, Jack knew when the tide was turning and wasn't about to let someone else outsmart him. He had his own strategy: take the money and take out anyone who stood in his way. Jack figured that with everyone else out of the picture, he could disappear without a trace. No one left to question the sudden absence of millions. But as fate would have it, both Alex and Jack acted on the same night. Alex packed his bags in the dead of night, ready to flee, but when he opened the door, Jack was waiting. The silence was broken by the unmistakable sound of a gun being cocked. "You really thought you'd outrun me?" Jack growled. But before Jack could pull the trigger, another gun clicked behind him. It was the last person either of them expected, someone who had been playing a long con all along. 5. The fallout. When the dust settled, only one walked away. Marcus, the quiet one who had kept to himself, had always been underestimated by the others, but he was the last man standing. Jack and Alex lay motionless on the floor, victims of their own greed and mistrust. Marcus hadn't intended for it to end this way, but in a game like this, survival was the only rule that mattered. As he stood over the wreckage of what had once been a well-oiled team, Marcus couldn't help but feel hollow. The millions now in his possession, once a symbol of success and freedom, suddenly felt like a curse. He knew all too well that no amount of money could buy him peace. The paranoia had already set in, creeping into the edges of his mind. Every shadow would look like a threat. Every knock at the door would send his heart racing. He had seen how quickly alliances dissolved and trust evaporated, and now, even in his victory, he was alone. No one to trust, no one to share the weight of his prize. The paranoia would follow him, haunt him, until he could no longer outrun it, until the day it finally caught up. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories of heists, disasters, and near misses. Got a crime story you want us to cover? Drop it in the comments below.